Hail, hail. Good evening, folks, and welcome along to the Monday night episode of the Endless Celts Podcast. My name's Anthony. I'll be taking the reins of the show tonight, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by the infamous deadly duo of Stephen and Francis. How are you tonight, boys?
You take it there, Franny. No, I'm all good. All good.
All good. Another week, another travel lodge, Anthony. That's the way.
I was going to say the Wi-Fi's not looking the best, mate, but we can still hear you and see you. So it's always a pleasure to have you on. And just a couple of things just before we get into the sort of main crux of the show tonight. A few of the listeners might have heard a few of the sort of rumours gathering pace about our ex-player and assistant coach Murdo McLeod. And it was sounding quite awful rumours to start off with. Thankfully, just before we came on air, we seen a tweet from Murdo's daughter to say that Murdo hadn't went into cardiac arrest or had a heart attack. It was more even than everyone. Thankfully, she was just confirming that Murdo was just in for a routine operation, and it's thankfully he's recovering well, and he's everything seems to all be good. So regardless, we always send Murdo our best wishes, and good for that good piece of news. Before we go into the main crux of the show, because I've not looked at the league table so far in terms of the Super Six, I'll hand you over to Stephen to give us all the latest news.
Well, I mean, the Super Six is taking off, and thankfully Sean Ross is back on top by 2 points. He's knocked Franny off top spot, so he's second. Alistair Jack in at a close third. Actually, he's a joint third, so he's both 86 points. William, one of our show regulars, a joint second, whatever. He's on 81, and then the fifth place is James Boy on 78 points. So it is all kicking off. And again, if he's want to get involved in that, the league code is there. There still is plenty of time. There's a couple of us like Anthony over there who's forgot to do it most weeks, so there's plenty of opportunities and points.
I think I've done it about 4 times since it started. I keep forgetting.
But yeah, everyone will get involved there. That's the latest. So Sean Ross is top.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure, Franco, you'll be doing your best to get back on top soon. But yeah, it's looking pretty competitive at the top there. I'm way behind. I'm like Leicester City. I'm halfway somewhere down near the bottom. But say no more. And welcome along, of course, to all the regular viewers and listeners as well. It's always good to see you all get involved in the discussion. Stephen will be bringing up all the comments. Evening, yep. Kaiser, and and it'll always be part of the discussion as we go forward. But only one place to start, really, boys. This is the first time in a year that we're doing a show on the back of a domestic league defeat. Something about the September weekend. What can you say? But we're going to go into what went wrong, whether that be tactics, individual mistakes, or whether it just be too much rotation or anything like that. We'll get into the sort of crux of it. But I'm sure we can both agree, Franco, I'll come to you first, that regardless of who or what was to blame, it was just what they call a proverbial bad day at the office.
It was one of them. It was nothing really worked for us. The play was slow. I mean, St Mirren, I think you've got to credit them. They were well structured, stuck to their game plan, and just to a man were better to us in every position probably. But it was sometimes you can get away with carrying a couple of players, but we never managed it yesterday. And under Ange, you need nearly everybody on their game, and it was just like you say. Bad day at the office, but it's one of the ones that's, like you say, our first league defeat in 39 games. So, bit of perspective, we don't need to go mental, but yeah, it wasn't a great performance yesterday.
Yeah, it's I can echo that myself. But Stephen, where did you watch yesterday's horror show, for want of a better word?
Well, as always with my granddad, who is in watching already, so it was great to see him as well. Always watch the football with him, Celtic games, but you said no need to go mental, Franny. I mean, this time yesterday, I was climbing the walls like just going over that game in my head. I thought, as you said, to a player, let's be honest, St Mirren were better than us on the day. We made a couple of 6 changes, I think, in total. didn't kind of work, and we're going to win the player performances with Anthony. But I mean, as we do a summary, it's like you look at it and it gives me the feel of like a COVID game under Lenny, like the Ross County defeat, that infamous one at Celtic Park when we were just absolutely gutless, no determination, no passion, no fight. It just felt like to me the team was passive yesterday. The St Mirren players bullied us. Our centre halves did not cope with that at all. Question marks for me over the keeper in the last couple of games. So I know we'll get that as well, but it was just a horror show. Yes, it's our first defeat in a year, but it was one I did not expect. I thought we would have went into that game. And I know I've seen people say Ange disrespect us at Mirren, and you kind of take yourself away from it. Maybe he did, maybe he quite didn't give them the billing that they needed, especially at home, kind of making all them changes. But with that team, with that squad, you're expecting to go into that game and win, whether it be a 2-1 or 1-0. But it was just, as you said, Anthony, it was a horror show from start to finish. The players weren't up for it at all. And that even goes to our captain as well, Colin McGregor, who I thought was in his shell yesterday, not like him. But yeah, horror show.
I think it's quite fit, and obviously it's basically been a ground where even we struggled last season as well. You think of the drop points just before Christmas as well, when St Mirren had very much I think their team was ravaged by COVID at the time, and they had a lot of their young players out, and we dropped points there as well. It just seems to be a ground that's proved a little bit tricky for us last few visits, to put it mildly. But we can only hope that it's a blip and not anything we have to be overly concerned about. But it's never nice when we drop points. But coming back to you, Stephen, we obviously, as we always do during a game in the group chat, there's lots of healthy, friendly debate, shall we say. And but one of the big things, we can come to individuals for a start, but one of the things that was sort of gauging a bit of sort of debate within the group was, obviously there was 6 changes yesterday, and obviously 2 of them were forced. Obviously before the match, Ange confirmed that CCV and Juranovic were both unavailable, so naturally we deputised, we brought back in Stephen Welsh to go alongside Jens, with Starfelt still being out, and of course Tony Ralston was stepping in for Juranovic, who you still like. Ralston has been tailor-made for these games last season. You think him up at Ross County, you think of that fantastic display that he had against Livingston just in the springtime there, so he's been in a decent reign of form in these kind of fixtures. But there was obviously a further 4 on top of that. And obviously Willie was making the point that we made more than that just a couple of weeks ago in the League Cup, but still ran out comfortable winners. And you got to, that's a fact. They can't dispute that. And I think many of the changes were actually similar personnel as to what there was yesterday. Aaron Moy coming in, David Turnbull, Abada, I think was maybe making his first start of the season against Ross County that night. So, in terms of that, do you think it was a case of too many changes in terms of personnel, or do you just think maybe not? Even myself, I don't think it was just the changes that were solely to blame. But do you think there was too many, or do you think the players that came in, there was still more than enough there to win the match?
Well, I mean, before I come on to that, Paul Dackham's in the first game I've missed this season. Impeccable timing, 100%. I wish we were all in the same boat in that one. But again, it's a great point to say that game was against Ross County. We won quite comfortably. I think it was 4-1 in the end. But I'm going to bring it a different sort of way. I think it was the combinations that didn't work well for us. I think the likes of, if you're dropping players like Hatate and O'Reilly, that's energy and physicality of the team. When you bring Moy and Turnbull in together, the midfield automatically becomes slower. Whether or not they're great technical players or they're great in the ball, you're losing that grit, that energy. So for me, you need to kind of complement a luxury type player with a player who can do the running box to box. And Hatate to me is perfect for that. And maybe we'll see the likes of Albergaard coming in later games after the international break, the defensive midfielder, a wee bit more grit there as well. And then on the wide areas, Maeda's come in for a bit of slack, and I'm starting to kind of agree with it. There's so many times where he should take his man on. He should beat him 1v1 quite easily. He has the pace, and don't know, there seems to be a wee switch in his head. He doesn't like to do it. He came from the Japanese league and finished top goal scorer more than Kyogo did in the season there as well. And then you go to the right hand side, Nevada. There was a lack of taking your player on, trying to create that space. I know they played with a flat back five at points of the game, but it's up to us to kind of break that down and get into these positions where we create goal scoring opportunities. And then Kyogo, I love the wee fella, Anthony, but he was non-existent. And Jack and Magus, for me, that was tailor-made for him, because at least if we're on the back foot and we're struggling to create, I know it's not pretty football, but we can lump it forward and kind of play off the second balls, off the cutbacks, and maybe Maeda could get involved more coming in off the left if he's winning free balls and that. But yeah, and Welsh, I just don't think, like, he's not great. He's not. I've seen some people like say he shouldn't be at Celtic and all that type of stuff, and maybe it's not to that quite level for me yet. But him and Jens together were absolutely shocking. It felt like, do you remember Lyndon Dykes when he bullied the likes of Ayer and stuff? That's the way I was getting with their big fella, a younger. And he was playing for Morecambe in League Two last season, and he absolutely bullied our centre halves. And it was, for me, quite embarrassing at times, especially the goals. But it was more combinations for me, so it was.
Well, I promised the viewers we didn't practice this seamless link beforehand, because that was exactly what I was about to say, Franco, that Moritz Jens very much had a Christopher Julian at Almondvale performance. Good evening, Mark, and obviously seen the voices had commented as well. Good to hear from you, as always. But yeah, Franco, I felt that as well. I probably didn't actually, in my fury at the result, probably didn't explain it very well in the group chat, but I did feel the same in the middle of the park, just with the fact that with that Aaron Moy, Callum McGregor naturally then being put out of the position, which, yes, we do say that is perhaps more natural in years gone by, but even in Phil, last couple of years has sort of made that sort of holding position his own. If you have those two, I think you do have to have a bit of pace with the third player, be a Hatate or someone else. But I think, and as much as I'm a David, very much part of the David Turnbull fan club, as you know, but I felt that combination, combined with, and not that they can necessarily help that, but combined with the ineffectiveness of Maeda on the left and Abad on the right, it seemed like so many players in the one game seemed to pick yesterday to have their worst performance. It just, putting all that together, it just made for a terrible sort of overall performance.
I totally agree in that sense. I think that was one of the big problems with, like, that midfield three started against Ross County, and nobody was complaining about the pace of the game then. They were playing with, but then the wide players were in the game then. So I think, like you say, when the wide players aren't getting into the game, it then makes it harder for the midfield. Obviously, St Mirren playing the back five, there wasn't a lot of space for the front three. There wasn't a lot of space in the back and behind for Kyogo. He wasn't making the runs or wasn't getting picked up on the runs and stuff. So I'm not going to sit here and defend anybody's performance, but equally, I do understand the argument for too many changes. Also understand the argument saying, well, there was 9 changes against Ross County, and look what we've done. It's one of them. You're maybe talking with the benefit of hindsight with both games, but it's just, for me, it was just nobody to a man really turned up yesterday. And I think when the wide men were struggling to get in the game, it doesn't help the midfield players.
Yeah,
but do you not think? Sorry, Anthony, but do you not think, Franny, that the wide men need to take, like, if you're struggling, like, if I'm a wide player, like, by all means, I'm not a wide man.
You need to take a bit of responsibility. I agree with that.
Yeah, but you need to take your man on. You cannot always cut back, and then, do you know what I mean? There has to be.
I don't know.
You have to.
It could be a deliberate tactic with they're trying to draw them out to create space in behind. I don't know. It could just be a confidence thing. Like, Abada, as still 20, maybe his wingers are a confidence player. If he's not really getting by his man, he's maybe try to then draw him out to get space in behind to then get a wee bit of confidence. I don't know. Again, with Maeda, he isn't he's not maybe on the best of form now. But Maeda since January is only second to Jota in our goals contribution. So I don't. He's not great in the last few weeks, but I don't understand this. He's turned into a bit of a whipping boy. Taylor was a whipping boy, and it seems to be moving to Maeda than the whole whipping boy thing, which I didn't get.
That left-hand side's cursed.
I know. I know. I mean, I think I jinxed Taylor because I called him bloody Prime Maldini on Friday, and look what happened. He went and turned in that on Sunday.
That's right, I remember that. I have to say, one of the, and you have to absolutely take in, you have to take into account as well what Ross and Willie were arguing, and in the interest of fairness, I think they argued their points well in the group chat as well, and you do have to concede that, you know, I've definitely came in at it, and it's just a natural thing. I'm not about, even in cup games where we made 9 changes that night. Even then, although we came away with the win, it's just in my psyche that I don't like it when I see too many changes on the board. And I know that the football's changed for when, you know, we were younger, and, you know, sports science and all that. I know rotation is key, but I have to say, when I did see the team yesterday, I thought, it's maybe 1 or 2 too many. But you hoped that we'd still, provided we came flying out the traps, that, you know, normal service would prevail. But, you know, it wasn't to be the case yesterday. But on the other hand, as Ross and William were alluding to, it might well be the case that had we played pretty much the same team from Wednesday night and we had a similar result, maybe it would all have been changed the other way and saying, you got to change it up after a European defeat. You know, it's the fickle nature of being a football supporter. It's just the way it's just in our makeup. But that's the sort of, in terms of the formation, the setup, and the players chosen, etc., Stephen. But of course, you don't lose 2-0 to St Mirren without there being some individual errors within the match. A lot has been said, like you say, about Joe Hart. Joe Hart's been getting a lot of stick for both goals, actually. I think, and I can understand to an extent the first one. I think, for me personally, I think the header is so fast that even though it is straight at him, unless it hits an actual part of his body, I can understand how it's went through him. Trying to be maybe a bit charitable here, but very much, I think the second goal, I think he's absolutely to blame for it. When the ball is in the air, before it takes it out, he should be out there taking everyone out the equation, because he knows regardless, if he doesn't get it, he's going to get a free kick anyway, because goalkeepers are very much a protected species. So I definitely do blame Joe Hart for the second goal. And of course, our favourite new player, Aaron Moy, who I thought, to be fair, at the start of the match, although you could argue we weren't starting in our usual 100-mile-an-hour self, I thought he was recycling the ball okay. He was making tidy passes, etc. But there's no doubt you got to pick up your man from that far back. I mean, I can't remember the St Mirren player's name that scored. That's escaped me for a moment, but yeah, that's it. He had a full run at that, and yes, we can say Ralston and, you know, Welsh positioning, but, you know, it's an easy overlap there just with the fact that Moy didn't pick up his defender, and considering his position on the park, that's his, you know, that should be his bread and butter. So yes, collectively we were poor. Yes, St Mirren deserved their victory, and I don't think there's any Celtic fan, you know, with 2 brain cells to rub the gill that would argue against that. But those individual mistakes absolutely proved costly yesterday.
I mean, yeah, before I get into that, I want to bring up some of the comments, obviously, and strange of the doctor, yeah, sure. It was offside for the second goal. No worries, boys. Michelle the Mac, it was just a wee blip, or big hands on money on the scenes. I mean, there's a lot of cracking comments coming in, but you made a point there. Like, I'll start with Moy, right? Moy, like, he's so, like, I don't know what it is about him, but seeing I watch him run, it's like RoboCop, and he doesn't turn well. And yes, people say he's fantastic on the ball, and see, starting a game, your game's getting slower. I don't care what anyone says. He's picking the simple pass all the time, sideways or back. The amount of times where he turned that point.
Absolutely. Without a doubt, you're starting a game slower with Moy starting the match. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
When the amount of time he picked his head up and looked, and then he turned back on himself, instead of taking that risk like Postecoglou wants to do and make that final, like, a pass up to the top to win the second ball, anything, it was always safe sideways, and he doesn't get me excited. And for me, he's better useful coming off the bench when you're winning 5-0 and you're seeing the game out. And he can be a use that way. But see, when he starts the game, excuse the pun, but he's useless in my opinion. He's shocking. I think that people always say that Conor McGregor, he's better up the pitch, up one in the 10 or an 8. McGregor for me is the best, and number 6, deep line midfielder. The way he controls the game, He can spread a pass. He can bring others into play. For me personally, now you lose a bit of him when he goes forward. Yes, you might get away with that apart.
As well.
You might actually get away with it when you're a Parkhead and you're winning 6-0 and he moves up one and Moy comes on. That's fair enough. But when you're starting the game, you need your captain and your leader being the focal point of your team. Moy, to me, he's slow, he's pedestrian. He doesn't look fit enough to be in that kind of system where you're pressing. Mark O'Hara glided past him for that goal. There was gaps, big gaps between where Moy should have been and O'Hara coming into the back post. Ralston was left with 2 players, and there's no way that Postecoglou left him with 2 players. They would have had a game plan to mark whoever's running into the boxes like a midfield runner. That was Moy's man. Moy fucked up, let's be honest. Left him. Ralston was outdone, and he scored a header. For me, Joe Hart, when you go back to the Shakhtar game, I don't understand why he ducked. I don't get that. That to me wasn't a natural reaction. He just kind of guessed and he moved his head down and put his arm up like this. That wasn't good goalkeeping. I 100% agree with what you're saying in terms of the second goal. That ball stayed in our 6-yard line for about 2 to 3 seconds. And I know it doesn't sound like lots, but in a football match in that environment, that's lots of time for a goalkeeper to come out and clatter whoever's in front of him. Welsh, again, got outdone at the back, the one to flick on, and Ayunga, who was an absolute monster who tortured our defence, just put it away with ease. And I think, for me, Joe Hart should have got it. He wasn't strong enough with his wrist in terms of when he was diving. And I mean, Welsh, again, to go back to it, he wasn't great at all. And the whole Celtic class thing, whether or not we like it or not, he's not it, if we're honest. And I know he's there probably for more the homegrown factor, and that's fair enough. But by freak of nature, again, we've lost our 2 first-choice centre-halves in Starfelt and Carter Vickers. And the big major issue with me, you can see how much Vickers is vital to that team when he's not in it, because we don't look the same in terms of that.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, we always say, there's no automatic picks in Ange's team or whatever, but I think regardless, Carter Vickers has to be, for me. He is head and shoulders above even Jens at this point for me. I think, don't get me wrong, Jens has started well. He's obviously contributed a few goals into proceedings as well. But yesterday, and hopefully he seems to be the type of player that we've seen so far that will learn from this yesterday. But he did get a lesson yesterday for me.
I don't know if you noticed it, Anthony. Seeing the corner kicks are a long throw. Curtis Main had him pinned all the time with his arm, and there was no effort from Jens to get in front of his man. And Curtis Main was torturing him all game, kind of winning the flick-ons and being kind of that bustling centre forward that we don't seem to cope with well. I thought that was eradicated every game, but obviously it's not. And that was a concern for me, that there was no kind of, what would you call, attitude or more to try and get in front of him, bully him a bit. It seemed like to me Curtis Main had his card marked early on in that game and he couldn't recover from it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And what I noticed that yesterday myself, and what puzzled me most about it was 2 weeks ago when Morelos came on for Rangers in the Derby defeat. The first thing Morelos did was go straight up to Jens, and he was trying to leave put his sort of fingers up at his cheek and stuff like that, just to sort of wind him up. And Jens's reaction was just, away you go, pal. Yeah. Like you're not even, and without sounding, Morelos is a better player than Curtis Main. So I was quite shocked yesterday, the difference in how Jens didn't react, and did allow Main and Ayunga to sort of to win those battles, so to speak. Frank, I'll come to yourself regarding the errors, just for your own thoughts on them, or if there's any other ones that sort of stick out for you, and just getting your thoughts as well on what Stephen was saying about Callum McGregor, because I think we've all sort of said recently, and I've said it myself, that traditionally you always think of Callum Mac going bursting forward and getting the goals and getting in amongst the goals and whatnot, but I think yesterday, I agree with Stephen, you did sort of see that perhaps now the 6 may well be Callum's best position, where he is sort of dictating the pace of the game, where he's able to sort of communicate more with his back 4 and allowing the sort of, your Hatates and your O'Reillys to get forward more, and obviously the boys on either wing to use their pace. I did feel that we lost a wee bit of Callum yesterday in that role. What were your thoughts?
I think so. It's one of the ones it's maybe just highlighting the fickleness of the football fan again, because for weeks we were not saying ranting and raving about Moy, but we weren't really criticising him, so to speak, a lot. Then he starts yesterday and has a bad game, and that's it. He's not good enough. Welsh again, I think that was the poorest I've seen him. I do agree the second goal, he's got to do better. Joe Hart could help him out by coming out and claiming it. I think Joe Hart should try to command his area a wee bit better there. I'll say that much. And Stephen Welsh it's one of the ones, it could have been gave as I felt I'd have been raging if up the other end of it gave a foul against us. But there is a younger just kind of puts his hand on him and I wouldn't say shrugs him away, but just creates a bit of space for him. Creates a bit of space for himself. But I think Welsh needs to be stronger there. 100% needs to be stronger. Ayunga's just really getting a bit of room for himself. I agree that I think Moy, with the replays I've seen anyway, Moy, I bear in mind only seen the replays during the game because I went and a huff and cut the grass straight after the football, so I've never seen any after the final whistle. And for me, I thought Moy lost his man on the first goal as well, but obviously Ross, and I don't know, maybe Willie said they feel the man came in for the wide, so without really, I'm kind of just speaking off memory now, but I felt like Moy let his man go there as well. But the centre half, I want to be careful in the sense that that's the first time, I think, somebody might correct me, that's the first time that partnership's played together, and they played against two old school strikers that just are up new. Just probably thought, right, came up, we'll get in their face, we'll impose ourselves and see how they like it. And like you say, they didn't seem to enjoy it, and it would have been good for Celtic, for Welsh, and Jens to maybe try and impose themselves back on the strikers. But I just think they allowed themselves to, I wouldn't say get involved in sort of needless battles on the park, but it was almost like the first few they were beat after that. I just thought the centre halves were they got bullied away, didn't impose themselves, and it goes back to just how individually everybody wasn't great, and as a collective it just was a disaster. Well, disaster is maybe the wrong word. It was just it was a really, really bad day and Sunday as a team performance.
Anthony, if you don't mind, before you continue, strange enough the doctor comes in here. Other than being pitched individually, yesterday it was a failure to stick to the principles of Ange ball. 2-touch pass and moving into space. Always make yourself available for the player on the ball. 100%. That is a perfect way to say that, because everything was against what Ange wants as a club and the way we play. It was so safe. It was so pedestrian. It was lackluster. It was like the team turned up being a bit arrogant, thinking it's a job where you're turned up, you're going to win. And me and McGranda were speaking to each other yesterday about it as well. And we do disagree on a lot of things, but one thing we agreed on, like, they turned up there to Paisley and thought it was just the fact of putting your boots on and you go out and win that game. And you cannot do that at any level of football team you're at, because Celtic Football Club, as Ange always says, we never stop. But that game there, we hit the emergency brake because we were absolutely shite, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Maybe in a case of we didn't really start yesterday rather than not stopping. But yeah, I agree. I think it was just a whole recipe of bad decision making, poor performances overall, and it just kind of culminated in a drop me 3 points, which we could have been doing without. But one of the things, I mean, and before I bring this up, and before I get howls of derision, I'm not in any way suggesting that this affected the result of the game, right? But I have to just, it reeked of amateur hour for me, in terms of, you know, the wider sort of how we present our product, if that's the right way to call it, to broadcasters. Because on what parallel universe do you send out our lot, us boys, in our grey with black shorts third kit against St Mirren, who play with very distinct black and white stripes with black shorts? It was, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but there was quite a lot of times in the game I was struggling to make out when, if the ball was, a diagonal pass going from one end of the pitch to the other, I was trying to work out who was actually a St Mirren player and who was a Celtic player. Now, I get that this is a thing where, St Mirren playing black and white. I don't know what their away kit is this year. And I get that, that at home you should always wear your home top. But, there's been times at Celtic Park where we've, especially against Hibs, where I can remember us wearing our change strip for the sheer basis, surely common sense. I mean, it didn't make for a good sort of viewing entertainment rather than anything else. And I don't understand. I think if you were going to go with anything, the hoops was surely a better bet than the two away kits if St Mirren were insisting on wearing their home top. Thoughts on that, Stephen?
That's all them ones, isn't it? It's whatever, horses for courses, that I was saying. I mean, the whole thing about the kits is fair enough, but if you rewind back in your life, you're playing with your mates in the street, there's a couple of guys wearing red tops, a couple of guys wearing black tops, and you can still make out who the hell you're passing to. Let's be honest. I get it for the simple fact.
That's the reason that there is
no, 100%. But I'm saying I get it from a whole professional look and that type of thing. The sky cameras are there, and you're looking at it being like, what is going on? There has been a few incidents, as you said, Anthony, but Hibs themselves have had to change kits and vice versa them. So in terms of that, it was a bit strange. But I think the thing is, with Adidas, you have to wear these kits that they produce at some point. And I thought Celtic picked the worst day to do it, unfortunately, and we wore that grey kit, even though I think it's quite nice and quite smart looking. Maybe we'll not wear. Maybe we won't see it ever again. But I get what you're saying.
The third kits do tend to just get worn once. So yeah, I think, like you say, that's it probably done and dusted. But Franco, does this once and for all prove that at least one of our away tops should always be sort of yellow or golden? Because apart from maybe Hibs, it's not really going to clash with anything, and we won't have this kind of situation again.
It was a weird one. Like, how's the referee looked at that and thought, by the way, that doesn't look like a clash? Because obviously, like we say, we're not using it as a reason or excuse why we lost the game, because the strip clash was the same for St Mirren as well. So, but I don't know, like, what I found strange, because I can remember, like, I'm sure it might just be an English and youth thing, but I noticed we always both had black shorts on. I thought you couldn't wear even the same coloured shorts. That might have made it not class so much if we had wore like maybe white shorts or something to the home kit. Just something, but it was a weird one how the referees looked at it and thought, this has got to be right. And it's just like you say, I spectacle where we're constantly trying to get more money for Sky and stuff like that. It's just, we silly touches like that can maybe folk can look and go, look at this, they can't even get two different kits, essentially.
No, that's the thing. I remember that this caused a big stir way back, and I remember it being the 2001 Scottish Cup final when we played Hibs, and Kenny Clark was the referee that day, and he claimed there was a big hoo-ha about the fact that both teams were wearing their away tops. Celtic had a sort of, that was the year that they had the gold kit with the really dark muddy green shorts, and Hibs had a sort of white kit with sort of a green trim around here with green shorts. And but both the teams were kind of pretty annoyed that they were having to both wear their away tops for the final. And Ken Clark sort of, he kind of backed up his decision with saying it was to benefit the linesmen, because Hibs at that year, the green didn't go right the way around. It had a white and then a green bit down the side at the panel underneath. And then that's up here. And if you remember, we had changed our kits 3/4 of the way through that season into the hoops with the infamous white panel down the side as well. So unless the rules have changed, that's been something that the referees can decide. And you're bang on, Franco. Even a change of shot. I mean, I'm sure John Clark and the rest of the Celtic kit team, we've got a pair of white shorts in there somewhere, or just something to just make it that little bit more clearer for the viewers. As I say, probably on the pitch, I agree, Stephen, it probably maybe wasn't that much of a factor, but definitely for the viewer at home, on the back, on top of what was a turgid performance, it was the icing on the cake. But so yes, that is the end of Stripgate, as it were. We'll move on, Franco, and we'll talk about sort of Ange's sort of comments after the game. And I personally thought it was a very good interview he gave post match. He protected the players that he brought in, whilst accepting that maybe he had got the team selection wrong, or maybe he took a lot of the deflected blame on himself. Which, if you're a player who's trying to impress to get in the team, that'll show you that maybe privately, I don't know what he did privately in the dressing room, but in public, he's certainly not going to hang anyone out to dry. And of course, obviously there was the incident as well pre-match. I thought obviously there was a leading question from the media there, and he shut it down. He says, "I've answered this question on Friday. I've got nothing more to say." I think as post-match pressers go after a defeat, you couldn't really ask for any more. What were your thoughts?
It was just Ange being Ange, wasn't it? He always nails it. He's never really gives them a headline to run with and stuff. And I think that's what you all want as a manager, especially like not calling your players out publicly. I mean, without being privy to what's happening in the changing room, I dare say would have had a few choice words for some of the players after Sunday, but. Yeah, like you say, keep the guys on side, because let's not talk about how fast Ange plays. You need the guys to be really, really fit. So you can't be calling guys out. You need guys to go to the wall for you. So if you're going to call guys out publicly, they're probably not going to do that. So I think, sticking up for the player, sticking up for that you say, shouldering the blame, so to speak, and deflecting the blame away from the players will probably help. They'll maybe sitting seeing that in the change rooms or see it in the news later on when they're sitting in the house going, well, Kenny's gave us it stick in the dressing room, but at least publicly he's sticking up for us. So let's make sure this doesn't happen again and stuff. So I think it just showed the intelligence of Ange and the type of man manager is, and the type of man that keeps saying as it was. I think it was smart comments from him.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And what about yourself, Stephen? Did Ange's post-match presser maybe not necessarily make you feel any better about the result, but did it kind of give you confidence that we're going to, address this ASAP, get it out of our system, and get ready for going again after the break?
Well, I think we all know the media, especially in Scotland, are going to try and trip him up any way whatsoever they can. And whether that's against the fans, doing whatever's happened in the previous couple of games, he's always made it clear he's not there to control the fans. He's always said that he can't control that, but he can control Celtic Football Club and what they do. And that's the perfect answer, because if you get involved in the back and forth, that doesn't end well. In terms of the game, the way he reacted to it, one thing I'm certainly sure of, he's had words, because when I seen him dress down that interpreter after the Shakhtar game, I was like, I wouldn't like to get on the sharp end of him. Do you know what I mean? So he's definitely had words to the team, and he's come out and fair play to him. He shouldered the responsibility. He's recognised that the team didn't work, the combinations didn't work in whatever area of the pitch he was observing. I'm sure it was all. I don't think it's going to be a thing we'll have to be concerned about. The only the issue I have is we have to guard against complacency. We have to guard against players getting above their station, thinking they have to turn up the games, and that's it. You still need the players on the pitch giving 100%, no matter who it is, an academy graduate or an international footballer. They all have to be on the same page, and hopefully he knocks any arrogance out of the group, because it did for me personally. I've seen a bit of that against St Mirren. I thought we would, as I said, but it was a case of they put their boots on and they win that game with their nice veiled up hair. I mean, the amount of times Turnbull does this and flicks his hair back before he takes a free kick and just gets on my tits. Just hit the free kick, man. I mean, there's no need to do it, but 100%, he's going to have the team in check, and we'll come back from the international break against Motherwell. I guess on the 1st of October, and hopefully, because we get into an RB Leipzig game away in Germany, and that won't be hard. That won't be easy. That won't be hard. There's the arrogance kicking in, but you know what I mean. We need to be on the same page and go forward. Hopefully, Ange Post, like he's always done, does that.
Yeah, I wasn't confident. Like, I don't think players are getting overconfident. That he's look at Yotta's comment after the Rangers game. Now, he's one of the stars of the team, and he's saying, "Look, the league's the one. We've got a long way to go." I think the players know they don't need to turn up, and they need to do more than turn up. I just think it's think it was a really, really poor performance. Like, you can't sugarcoat it any other way. It was a bad performance, but I think, like I say, it's not concerned. If this type of performance was happening regularly, I would be a wee bit concerned. But when was the last time you turned in a performance like that? And that's what I was looking at. If coming back after the break, if we turn in performances like that, then I'll maybe start asking more questions.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, but if I think the thing is, even when you look at some of the great teams around the world, I'm sure even Pep's Barcelona team dropped points at some point in their sort of history-making campaigns. Even the Lions themselves didn't go the full season unbeaten. I suppose that's maybe one thing we don't have to ask that question anymore between now and the end of the season. That's been, and it's
well,
gone.
To be fair, Anthony, Ross asked the question on the agreed disagree, and I said wouldn't go on and beaten, so I'll take that one. Next week, victory for myself.
I think that's why that these things are such a rare occasion, aren't they? And I think we're definitely in a good position to still have to make this a sort of season to remember, I would say. And but yeah, I totally agree, guys. I think he sort of made the sort of main points, and like you say as well, with regards to his with regards to making sure that the media didn't get any more fuel to the fire. I thought he was absolutely bang on, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm regardless of whether you condone or condemn the actions of the fans yesterday and on Wednesday night as well. Obviously, Willie, you guys were speaking about it on Friday night after the Shakhtar game, but it is what it is, and we're not here to sort of take an opinion on that sort of either which way. But I can guarantee one thing: I don't know about you, I'm sick to the back teeth of some of the people that have suddenly found two balls underneath and decided to start attacking us as if we're the sort of the evils of all things in this country. You know what I mean? It sickens me, mate, to hear some of the crap that we've had to put up with this week. And when you hear people like Piers Morgan, Rupert Murdoch's puppet, Jeremy Kyle, some vile wee narcissist that preys on some of the most vulnerable people in this country. And I'm trying to think who else. Piers Morgan, Jeremy Kyle, who was the other one coming away with stuff?
There was a fellow on that Talk Radio, and one of them other things as well. The thing that I look at it as well, and it's quite clear for everyone to see, you take snapshots of everyone who's had pop shots at Celtic this week, and look at the company they keep in their private life. That to me,
there's the main one there, Stephen. Nigel Farage, king of the gammons. Do you know what I mean? These are the people that are supposedly the defenders of everything great about this country. As I say, the day that I take, or anyone at Celtic take any lessons in morality for these ghouls, these vampires, it'll be a very long day indeed. And we're not necessarily saying that we condone the actions yesterday, but these people all claim that they love freedom of speech. They only seem to accept it when it's their opinions that we're agreeing with. And all I'll ever say, as they said there, we're the good guys, and if anyone's got anything to say about that, they can go form an orderly queue. But apart from that, let's get back to the football. Like I said, we kind of touched on it before, Franco, but like we said, we've had a bad defeat, but I think once the internationals are over, it'll be a case of resetting and going again.
I think that's what it is. You just got to reset and go again, and there'll be obviously players that you maybe get a few days off, it being the extended international break and stuff. The guys that are not going away might get a few days off, but you should know as soon as they're back in training, and that's where Ange does his good work. Most of his best work is on the training ground. He'll be drilling everything into them. So I've no, as disappointed as I was with yesterday's. I think the performance, you can get beat. Things you can get beat, and it's the manner you get beat. I think what's happened a lot more for me, it's the manner in what we got beat. But equally, I've got to balance out by saying we're not turning in the performances and nicking a result. Well, actually turning in dominant performances and winning games. Yesterday we just done none of that. Like Stephen touched on it, it just wasn't what Ange wants for how he wants his players. It was more the manner of the defeat. I think that annoyed me. So yeah, it's a good thing or a bad? Maybe is that for a fan, it's a bad thing of the international break. You just want to go back in it. Probably for the players as well, just want to get straight back in. But I think Ange will love it in the fact that he's got time to now work on the players, and that's where he works his magic and things like that. So if we come back in the next 2-3 games, returning performance like that, I'd be a wee bit concerned. But I just, on the evidence of what I've seen sort of in the last 6 to 8 months anyway, I don't see where that run of performances comes to.
I'm the exact same. Stephen, what's your own thoughts on it? Do you think just a blip? Once we get back for the break, we'll be good to go again and bring on Motherwell?
Well, that's what I hope. I mean, that's what you're obviously hoping as a Celtic fan. It doesn't turn into a couple of games where you're dropping a few points here and there and you kind of get into a run of a kind of performance. But I don't think that's going to happen, which brings me back to the whole thing. That's what confused me about making all these changes, because these players are away and it's not up to us to keep them fit or keep them full of energy for their national teams. They have to be playing for us fit and fair, and never mind whether they're going for whatever a meaningless friendly halfway across the world. It shouldn't really come into the mindset when you're making changes for the team. And I know Ange, like, he'll be on the training pitch. The likes of Jada will be still there, Abelgard, Haksabanovic, who's still getting fully up to speed, and Matt O'Reilly. I don't know if he's away with Denmark, but all these guys, Carl Starfelt, will be coming back from injury. So get them back on the training pitch and get them going again, get them motivated. And I think against Motherwell, they got beat yesterday by Hearts, wasn't it? 3-1. I think it was something like that. So that they're going for a bad patch themselves. I mean, so if we can recover, players come back fully fit from international duty, play our best team available. I know we've got a squad. We always bang on about the squad, but I want to win games. Play the best players we have, and then hopefully that takes care of itself.
Yeah, I would agree. Obviously, October 1st, still quite a while away, but I'm definitely sure, provided, fingers crossed, we all come back with a clean bill of health for the international break. I'm definitely, I would hope for as strong a side as possible at home against the Steelmen. But which leads us on nicely, guys. We won't dwell too long on it, but just obviously big international week coming up. Stephen, every day that there is a club fixture on, we are united in what teams we support. But come Saturday, we're going to be rivals again as the Blue of Scotland and the Green of Ireland go head to head at Hampden. You boys turned us over in the summer. Do you see a repeat happening again?
Can I just be honest? I couldn't give a shit. I'm 100% honest, because I think Ireland are abysmal. I don't think they're actually exciting. Scotland, obviously, we done the specials on them when they're in the Euros and stuff. That was fantastic, a great thing to be involved in. But the game itself, I'm not probably going to watch it with. To be honest with you guys, it's not something I'm fully invested in. I know Ireland, they've had a kind of upturn in form with Stephen Kenny. He's bringing a few younger guys in from the likes of Southampton. Obafemi, I think he's called a young striker. We've still got the likes of Hendrickson all playing in midfield. Shane Duffy, experienced centre back, obviously, but for ourselves, Seamus Coleman, players like that. But I think Scotland, they should have enough the edges for me. Ireland and the other team, the north of Ireland, even though it should be a one type thing for me, that's just baffles. But they're both abysmal, in my opinion. International football is like a hindrance to my season. Unless it's a World Cup or a Euros, I don't want to know about it. I don't care about it. I want to see Celtic play. If Scotland win, fair enough. If Ireland win, fair enough. That's that 50-50 for me, Anthony. I'm just being brutally honest.
Yeah, to be fair, I'm talking obviously the game on Saturday. We obviously have a big game on Wednesday as well. Franco, the first game against Ukraine at Hampden, and then obviously next week we play them again. It's all very tight in the Nations League, but yeah, do you have is your appetite any more whetted than Stephen's for a week of international action, or do you just wish we were back to league action on Saturday?
You've probably got the wrong guys on for talking about international football. Willie and Ross, you're international guys. I'll play admitted I jumped on the bandwagon with Scotland and yours. I'm down in Devon, so I'm going to try and catch the game, but it's got to be obviously in a perfectly legit streaming service I'll be using on Wednesday to try and catch it. So it would depend obviously on certain Wi-Fi's and stuff if I see the game. Saturday I'll get to see that game, but obviously I like seeing Scotland winning, but it's one of them I'm a bit like, it doesn't really get me down as much as it probably should if we don't get a positive result. But I'm I'm an absolute glory hunter when it comes to the international football, Anthony. I've openly admitted that plenty of times. If Scotland get to the Euros, I'll pretend I paid attention all the way through the campaign. Yeah. But obviously, I want Scotland to win, but it's I'm kind of with Stephen in the sense it gets in the way for me at times in international football.
Yeah, like I can remember. Sorry, Stephen.
I know you said there that there's games during the week, but the only date I can have in my head is the 1st of October, the when Celtic's back, and that's going to drag in, and that's going to be the worst couple of weeks of my life. But what we said, Anthony.
No, well, do you know what's funny? I mean, I have to say, I know Ross and Willie, that noise you hear is Willie screaming for Faulthouse about how we're not giving international football the respect it deserves. I would probably say I'm sort of somewhere in the middle. My affection has sort of resumed the last few years. When Alex McLeish was manager, I just point blank refused to watch it. I thought we're just rewarding cheats now. But I have to say, since Steve Clarke got the job and they seem to have kind of sorted themselves out a bit, just sort of went back to basics, but we put the right guy, I think, in terms of what Scotland could attract. I think we've got the right guy in the dugout, and we've started putting the square peg in the square peg section for the last wee while. I know we've obviously had the downturn, and we're bitterly disappointed to miss out on the World Cup. But and I think were we not to qualify for the Euros, there would probably be a change again. But until then, I'm happy to stay on the Steve Clarke Express, and I'm actually going along on Wednesday night, so I'm quite looking forward to it. If nothing else.
Is this a qualifying game? What is it?
Nations League. So it's the sort of little mini tournament before the main qualifier starts. So whoever wins this, whoever tops this group after we've all played each other twice, gets the sort of safety net sort of playoff space, so that even if they don't finish first in the main qualifying group, they still get an extra chance to qualify. That's how Scotland qualified for the Euros a couple of years ago, Stephen, because I think we finished third in our main qualifier group, but because we'd won our Nations League group, we were still flung into the playoffs. We thankfully managed to get past Israel and Serbia. So I think this sort of determines where we are in the sort of coefficient. So it's quite tight at the moment, but 3 games in a week, so plenty of international action for those who are bothered, really.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I think, like, if, as Franny said, like, if Scotland get into another tournament, we'll be covering it 100%. But my personal opinion, I've never been a big lover of international football, whether that be Ireland or, yes, I would go to the pub sometimes and watch a few games, but it's more to get pissed and have a bit of crack. So that's about it. Like, but
I remember speaking to one of my friends in the Grange, Franco, one of our favourite watering holes, and it was the day of a Scotland match, and he was just out for a drink. He wasn't too overly bothered about the game, and I always remember him saying that watching international football, it was a bit like wanting his favourite NFL team to win. He's just, he liked a certain team, but if they don't win, it's hardly going to be a downer on his weekend. So it's it certainly generates a lot of debate, the international scene, especially with historically what went on in the disgusting treatment of Celtic players up until relatively recently, it could be argued. But I think you can't not want to see the likes of KT and Callum McGregor, exactly, and fingers crossed for some good results. That's all we say. But I do agree with you. I'm looking forward to October 1st when the main stuff resumes. But just to kind of round off, guys, after the internationals, we do also have some extra shows coming up on the channel this week. First of all, Thursday night, Stephen, it's going to be the first of your sort of chats with Tony McLaughlin from Celtic by Numbers. Stats drop. As you're going is it the title for it? You guys are going to be getting very analytical and talking all about the XG of Georgios Giacomakis, etc. So want to tune in for all you data lovers out there. I'm quite looking forward to it myself, to be honest. And Friday we'll have the normal show where we'll probably debating all things Scotland, Ukraine, and of course on Sunday we're doing another Champions League rewind. We started this a few weeks ago with we'll try to look back on all our previous Champions League campaigns throughout the season and we've just been struggling to get a time when we're all available at the weekend to do a spin-off show. But hopefully we're going to get a couple of guys in on Sunday, and we're going to look back on season 2003-04, which was our second venture into the Champions League group stages. Proved to be Henrik's final season at the club, so we'll kind of go over all that. And of course, we had one of our famous victories over Barcelona in the UEFA Cup once we went out, so I'm sure we'll probably go over that as well. But in terms of the show, boys, that's kind of us for tonight. Have you enjoyed it, despite many of the subject matters?
Yeah, I mean, again, you have to cover it, whether we win, lose, or draw. And that's what we always say. And it's good that you actually vent a few frustrations that you couldn't do previously because we were doing so well, and you can notice it. But it's like, well, I'll bring it up because we're winning like 5-6-0. But now you can call out the likes of Moy and Turnbull and that. So I'm quite happy with that. I like doing that sometimes. Like, so, I mean, as
the song goes, we don't care if we win, lose, or draw. We only know there's going to be a show, an Endless Celts show, you know, and it doesn't matter whatever the result. Us boys will be here to dissect it and go over all the talking points. Over yourself, Franco. You enjoy yourself tonight, even though the Wi-Fi's a bit dodgy.
It was a good wee bit of therapy. And I felt that been down in England. It's a nice place, isn't it?
That's it. I'm sure it's just one of these things, you know. It doesn't happen too often, as I say. Like this time a year ago was our last domestic league defeat, but I wouldn't be too disappointed if it's another year before we're having to have another sort of show with subjects like this. But what can you do? But no, that's us, boys, for tonight. Thanks again to Stephen and Francis, and thanks to all you guys for watching along and tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed the show, despite the result. And Stephen, will see you again on Thursday, and we'll be back with the regular show on Friday night. So that's it from me, and I'll hand you over to do the farewell.
Yeah, so as Anthony said, on Thursday is the first show of our stats drop. Me and Tony McLaughlin from Celtic Trends will be looking back at the games against St Mirren and Shakhtar, just getting a wee bit of depth about player performance, expected goals. It's something I'm interested in learning about, the more analytical side of things. So I always want to watch it. If it's your cup of tea, put your learning cap on, because I'll be doing it too. Like, so it'd be good crack, and get involved in the comments, and I'll put any questions you have to Tony as well from Celtic Trends, and I'd be glad to answer them. But in terms of that, we're back on Friday, as Anthony said, and then the Champions League rewind this Sunday. And until then, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.